She sacrificed her ticket for a tired dad and his child. What happened next will leave you amazed. Claire leaned against the cold bus stop bench, every ache in her body radiating from her overworked feet to her heavy eyelids. Another grueling shift at the hospital had faded into a blur of urgent calls and quick assessments. Normally, tonight would be different. Tonight was supposed to be her escape. She had been looking forward to that concert for weeks, the sweet melody of music promising relief from the relentless juggle of her nursing duties and the nagging invisibility that loomed within her family. She watched people walk by, absorbed in their lives, while she remained just a figure waiting on the curb, as insignificant as a discarded coffee cup. Her gaze fell on Tom, a weary father who was wrestling with a fidgeting toddler. His sunken eyes and the tremor in his hands told a story of fatigue, yet his attempts to soothe his child were earnest. Claire's heart tugged. A feeling of compassion fought against her selfish desire for a night of music. Did she really need that escape? With her ticket clutched tightly, she hesitated for a moment, then made a decision that felt colossal yet simple. "Here," she said, thrusting the ticket into his hand. "Take this. You both deserve a break." As she walked away, her chest tightened. She felt a mix of fulfillment blossoming alongside sorrow. In a swift act of kindness, she had sacrificed something she craved deeply, trading it for a fleeting moment of joy for a father striving to connect with his child. "Wait." Tom's voice chased after her, and she turned, allowing a moment of vulnerability to unravel. He explained how he'd been laid off from his job at the factory and was drowning in worry and responsibilities as a single dad. Their exchange deepened, illuminated by shared burdens and the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Claire felt a flicker of her own dreams glimmering in the shadows of their conversation, a long-buried love for music that had been overshadowed by the needs of others. Each passing moment ignited something buried within her, yet it felt just out of reach. She had set her aspirations aside for too long. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, Tom's gratitude breathed new life into her. He invited her to a local talent showcase, a reminder of the community she had distanced herself from. That spark of inspiration clashed violently with her self-doubt. What if she no longer had a voice worthy of the stage? As the night approached, the weight of insecurity grew heavier. Each anxious breath and rapid heartbeat became a reminder of all she had sacrificed over the years. The night of the showcase arrived, and Claire stood backstage, adrenaline rushing through her veins as she watched others shine. Their laughter, their confidence only highlighted her hesitation. Could she really step into that spotlight and reclaim what she had forfeited? The audience's cheers intertwined with her mounting fear and longing, a visceral reminder of every dream deferred. Just when she thought she would find the courage to face the crowd, an unforeseen disruption ripped through the audience, intensifying the moment and shifting her reality. Claire trembled, her heart pounding with unrelenting intensity as she stood on the cusp of rediscovery and loss. The air thickened with tension, the audience holding its breath, leaving her caught in the limbo of choice amidst the upheaval of their shared stories. Would she take the leap, or would the shadows of her past keep her rooted in a life that felt increasingly out of her control? The disruption reverberated in Claire's chest, rattling her nerves like thunder. In that moment, her mind spiraled into chaotic ancestries of indecision. The laughter and cheers of the microphone's earlier champions felt like a distant echo, while the clamor of the audience morphed into a tempest swirling around her. She could feel their anticipation drumming against her skin, each pulse a reminder of the spotlight she had dreamt of for so long yet feared so intensely. A part of her cried out for the familiar comfort of her duties in the hospital, where each shift was predictable and safe, every task marked by purpose, a stark contrast to the wild unpredictability of performance. But another part, that hidden piece of herself Tom had inadvertently awakened, yearned to reclaim the joy that music once brought her. The internal struggle grew louder than the chaos outside, it echoed in her bones, urging her to be bold. As she stepped closer to the curtain, each inch felt colossal. Her hands trembled at her sides, and she bit her lip, weighing the comfort of invisibility against the potential thrill of exposure. What if the audience saw her inadequacies? What if they merely heard a cacophony where harmonies should be? Yet, the voice inside persisted. This could be her moment of resurgence, a reclamation of identity that had long faded. With a deep breath, Claire closed her eyes for just a heartbeat. In the darkness behind her eyelids, images of long-forgotten moments washed over her, her hands wrapped around the neck of a guitar as she strummed melodies in her room, the satisfaction of singing her heart out during impromptu karaoke nights with friends, and the echoes of cheers she'd received when she dared to perform. Each memory became a thread weaving together a tapestry of desire, a passion igniting within her once again. Instinctively, Claire reached out to the stage manager, who seemed caught up in the fervor of the moment, and whispered, "I want to go on." There was a moment of surprise in the manager's eyes, quickly replaced with understanding. "Are you ready?" the manager inquired, an edge of wariness creeping into her tone. "More than I've ever been," Claire answered, struggling to suppress the fluttering butterflies swarming in her belly. Acknowledgement flickered across the manager's face, and without further hesitation, she nodded. Claire's heart raced as she stepped out from behind the curtain, the spotlight spilling warmth over her. The audience was a mass of blurred faces, yet the palpable energy they emitted surged through her like a lifeline. It wasn't about perfection, it was about connection, about pouring her heart, the very essence of her being, into each note she prepared to sing. In that pivotal moment, Claire awakened to a truth long buried: she was capable of more than she ever imagined. The whispers of doubt lingered in the corners of her mind, but there was now a stronger voice, one full of determination and unyielding resolve. As she gripped the microphone, the sound of her breath amplified in the silence. Her feet steadied beneath her, and she opened her eyes, scanning the audience, seeking out a familiar face, someone to share this uncharted territory with. Lines blurred between her past sacrifices and her present hopes, culminating in this act of courageous defiance against the status quo of her life. However, the emotional tumult of the moment brewed into something unexpected. Just as she was about to speak, her eyes locked onto a figure in the crowd, a face from her past that now ignited distant fears and regrets. The moment of truth teetered on the edge of revelation, leaving Claire to grapple with the implications of her newfound courage against the shadows of her past. Would she embrace this opportunity fully, or would this familiar presence, tainted with memory, send her spiraling back into doubt? Claire's heart raced, the weight of the microphone palpable in her hand. That familiar face loomed like a specter in her mind, dredging up emotions she'd buried beneath layers of purpose and duty. Her gaze wavered, caught in an internal tempest that threatened to uproot her newfound determination. Was it possible for one moment to unravel the fabric of her resolve? The audience remained a sea of anticipation, their energy undiluted, undeterred. Claire inhaled sharply, reigniting the flames of ambition that had flickered during her years in the hospital. This, she realized, was more than a performance, it was an embodiment of her untapped potential. Yet would she step into this moment fully, or retreat into the shadows of her past? The face in the crowd, a reminder of heartache, of choices she thought were long reconciled, was both a challenge and a crutch. She hesitated, allowing the moment to stretch like honey, an unplanned pause that hung heavily in the air. Right then, Claire questioned her choices, those that had brought her to this brink yet prevented her from leaping into the unknown. Was she courageous or simply reckless? "You can do this," she whispered fiercely to herself, her determination washing over her like a tide. The pulse of her heartbeat resounded alongside her inner mantra. The remembered joy of making music surged like adrenaline, and suddenly, she was reminded of her passion, a love so profound that it eclipsed every doubt, every regret. The moment strained against the framework of her fears, until, at last, she spoke into the microphone, her voice quivering but resolute. "Hello, everyone." It was a simple greeting, but it ignited a chain reaction deep within her. A ripple of excitement spread through the audience, and as their cheers cascaded toward her, she started to see the faces clearly, faces alive with encouragement rather than as loaded shadows of her past. With steady resolve, she took a step forward. The tension she had felt in her limbs began to dissolve, replaced by a sense of connection. Each word she articulated transformed from a mere exchange to a bridge, linking her heart to theirs. As she launched into her first song, Claire felt herself swell with unwavering resolve. Her voice, initially timid, soared into the atmosphere, driven by the pulsating energy of the crowd. She was losing herself in the performance, wrapped in the melodies and harmonies she had once feared creating. It was frighteningly liberating. The shadows that had clung to her tight began to disperse, unable to hold their grasp against the truth of who she could be. But then, through the notes and rhythms, another realization crept in, delicate yet powerful: what if this new path came at a cost? What if the risk wasn't just about performance or failure, but about confronting her past? As the performance unfolded, flashes of memories surged, moments of laughter, of pain crafted in the decision to walk away from music amid the demands of her career as a doctor. As the song reached its crescendo, a fear simmered within her, barely audible over the sound of applause. Would moving forward mean forsaking the familiar bonds she had relied upon? With conviction trailing behind in her wake, Claire forced herself to breathe as she hit the final note. The audience erupted with applause, their cheers affirming her choice, but the weight of possibility lingered. This newfound freedom to embrace her passion opened a gaping door to her future, but what awaited her on the other side? As she stepped back from the microphone, the resounding echo of her inner conflict lingered like an unresolved chord. The path ahead was uncertain, colored by dreams she had either forgotten or ignored. Would she dare to delve deeper into her musical aspirations? Or, inevitably, would the specter of her past pull her back, reclaiming the narrative she had only begun to rewrite? The exhilaration of possibility balanced precariously with the weight of her choices. Claire's journey was just starting, and she sensed that confronting the past was the next test that awaited her. In that moment of reflection, she braced herself for the challenge that loomed ahead. How far could she go before her courage gave way to the haunting specters behind her? The applause reverberated in Claire's ears, a cacophony of validation that momentarily dulled the inner conflict swirling in her mind. She stepped off the stage, overwhelmed by a cocktail of emotions. Her heart thudded in her chest, not just from the performance but from the storm of thoughts that threatened to drown her newfound confidence. She had crossed a threshold, but the path ahead appeared foggy and fraught with implications she was only beginning to grasp. As the adrenaline began to fade, she realized that the face she had seen in the crowd had not vanished with the final note. Instead, it morphed, shifting from the ghost of her past into a reminder of the choices she still needed to make. That pivotal moment had been exhilarating, but it was just the beginning. Here she stood, teetering on the edge of two lives, one defined by the relentless expectations of her medical career, and the other by an unquenchable yearning for personal expression. What weighed heavier, the demands of her profession or the freedom of her passion? With every breath, the implications of her performance began to clutter her mind. How would her colleagues perceive this new facet of her identity? Would they respect her newfound courage, or would they view it as an act of desperation, a frivolous detour from her responsibilities? She had prided herself on being a beacon of dedication in her field. Had she just risked that identity for a fleeting moment of self-indulgence? Claire leaned against the cool wall of the backstage area, eyes closed, attempting to steady her racing thoughts. She knew she could not ignore her fear. It was a part of her too, woven into the varied threads of her complex tapestry. Unlike surgery, where precision reigned, music offered chaos, expression, and the unpredictable beauty of vulnerability. Yet, wasn't vulnerability the very essence of healing? Both music and medicine shared threads of empathy and connection, channels of communication in their unique ways. Opening her eyes, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a polished surface. Who was this woman staring back at her? A performer? A doctor? Perhaps she could be both. The stark lines of her career path sharpened into focus, and an exhilarating thought unfurled in her mind: what if she could carve out a space that honored both her medical commitments and her musical aspirations? This revelation catalyzed a burgeoning determination within her, but it came with its own set of dilemmas. Pursuing her artistic side would require sacrifices, potentially jeopardizing her reputation as a serious and committed doctor. Balancing two professions, rigorously demanding in their own right, sounded exhausting and daunting. Yet Claire felt a flicker of hope. Why had she thought she had to limit herself? Surely, her ability to care for others extended beyond the confines of surgery. Could not art also be a form of healing? As she mulled over this, fleeting memories of hospital wards where music soothed anxious patients emerged, intertwining her dual passions into an intricate narrative she had yet to explore. The applause had faded, but the echoes of her voice lingered. What lay ahead wasn't merely a decision about music, it was about embracing her multifaceted self. Steeling herself against the fear of judgment from her peers, Claire envisioned a future that married her skills in medicine with her love for music. The very realization sent a jolt of energy through her veins. Drawing a deep breath, she opened the door to the main area, prepared to face whatever awaited her. But as she walked back into the crowd, she was suddenly met with a steely gaze at the edge of the room, someone she hadn't expected to see so soon. It was a colleague from the hospital, arms crossed, eyebrows raised in bemusement. His expression was a storm cloud on her sunny revelation. The moment of truth was upon her. How would she navigate this first confrontation with someone whose opinion mattered? As footsteps closed the distance between them, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down, the path before her sharp and uncertain. Would she rise to this challenge, or would the specter of her past continue to haunt her? The air felt thick as Claire approached her colleague, Dr. Aldrich, whose unblinking gaze bore into her with an unnerving intensity. In that moment, the fleeting surge of confidence from her performance dissipated like morning mist. Instead of the supportive camaraderie she had hoped for, there was an unmistakable scrutiny, as if he were assessing not just her recent actions but the very essence of her professional character. "Claire," he said, his voice steady but laced with a critical undertone. "What were you thinking? You know how important your reputation is in this field." The words landed with the weight of a surgical blade, cutting deep. Was this the price she had to pay for stepping beyond the boundaries she had so meticulously maintained? "I was thinking," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt, "that there's more to me than just a surgeon. Music is part of my healing too." He scoffed, arms still crossed as he shook his head. "You've spent years building your career. This indulgence could cost you respect among your peers. Patients need to trust you, and they might find it difficult if they see you as a performer." A part of her wanted to recoil, to defend herself against the shadow he cast upon her journey. Yet another part knew she had to stand firm. "I understand your concerns, but I also believe that vulnerability can build trust, not destroy it. People are complex. I'm not just a surgeon, I'm also an artist." She could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, but his expression quickly hardened. The reality of her duality did not fit neatly into his perception of who she should be. As a prominent figure in their department, Dr. Aldrich's opinions could easily sway others. Would they join him in dismissing her passion as a distraction or folly? Claire felt the knot in her stomach tighten. She thought of the patients she had comforted with music, how their pain seemed to dissolve within melodic notes. Could they diminish such profound connection because of preconceived notions? This moment felt like a litmus test for her resolve. "Do you really want to be seen as the singing surgeon?" he challenged, his tone now tinged with disdain. "You risk being pigeonholed." The thought unsettled her. She had poured her heart and soul into both of these identities. Could they coexist, or would one always overshadow the other? The more she pondered it, the clearer the answer became. "I refuse to be confined," she stated resolutely. "I've seen too many patients grapple with their identities, and if I can model a life that embraces all aspects of oneself, medical, artistic, emotional, perhaps I can inspire them." To her surprise, a brief silence enveloped them, the noise of the crowd fading into a blur. Claire sensed a shift in the dynamics of their conversation, planting a seed of uncertainty within him. What if he were witnessing a pivotal moment, a confident assertion of self that shook rigid expectations? But just as quickly as his expression softened, it hardened again. "You'll regret this," he said quietly before turning to leave. The dismissal stung, but Claire felt embers of determination ignite within her. Regret? No, she wouldn't allow that to define her choices. She envisioned a world where healing and art intertwined and vowed to carve her own path, undeterred by those who questioned her journey. Stepping back into the crowd, the exhilaration from her performance swelled within her. There was still a long road ahead, filled with challenges and confrontations, but she could see it unfolding clearly now, the quest to weave her two worlds into a cohesive narrative, rather than live in shifting shadows of doubt and judgment. She would begin small, perhaps performing at the hospital for staff or patients, a step towards integrating her passions. However, as Claire contemplated her next move, a flicker of recognition crossed her mind. What if someone else within her department was also harboring a hidden passion that could harmonize with her own? The thought arrested her momentum, shifting her perspective again. Could her pursuit lead to unexpected alliances and perhaps a way to change perceptions in her field fundamentally? The possibilities danced before her, forever entwined with the risks she was willing to take. And as she navigated through the crowd, excitement building within, she felt a new question arise: if she could confront Dr. Aldridge's doubts, who else might she inspire to embrace their hidden selves? The journey was just beginning, and there was no turning back now. Claire's heart raced as she pushed through the hospital's bustling hallway. There was a palpable shift within her. The air seemed richer with potential. The conversation with Dr. Aldridge had awakened something deep inside, a potent blend of defiance and inspiration. If her declaration of duality had unsettled him, it could inspire others to reconsider their own constraints. Determined to integrate the worlds of music and medicine, Claire's thoughts turned to her colleagues. She began surveying faces, seeking a kindred spirit, someone who shared the burden of duality. Not everyone had the luxury of being openly passionate about their outside interests, yet Claire sensed that others carried similar weights beneath their professional facades. She approached Dr. Chen, a stern but respected anesthesiologist known for his unwavering approach to patient safety. "Hey, Dr. Chen," Claire said, her voice warm yet tinged with apprehension. "What do you do when you're not wearing scrubs?" His brow furrowed slightly, a hint of surprise shifting his normally stoic expression. I like to garden," he admitted, almost sheepishly. "It relaxes me." "Gardening?" She smiled, fostering a connection. "That sounds beautiful. You should talk about it with others. I bet there's something in there that resonates with the rest of us." Dr. Chen shrugged, an internal conflict battling within his expression. "But it's nothing to do with medicine. No one would care." "That's precisely it," Claire countered. "People need to see the human side of us. If I integrate music into my practice, perhaps others will bring their passions forth too. We could reshape how we view patient care." Dr. Chen considered this. Intrigued, yet hesitant, he returned, "And how do you think that helps? What if someone ridicules your approach?" She absorbed his concern, feeling the familiar connection between vulnerability and the fear of judgment. "It's confronting fear, isn't it? What if we embrace that vulnerability instead?" She could see the wheels turning in his mind. The seed was planted. While Dr. Chen may not have agreed with her methods, she sensed the possibility of a budding partnership, anchored on shared experiences. Claire envisioned a gathering, an open night of shared passions: music, gardening, art, anything that could blend into a tapestry of personal stories that illustrated their humanity. As she began envisioning the logistics, her thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice calling her name. It was Elise, a young intern with an infectious enthusiasm that contrasted sharply with the weight of their professional environment. "Claire! Did you really sing at the community event?" Elise's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Yes, I did." Claire found herself smiling broadly, the moment igniting her enthusiasm even further. "I'd love to do something like that. I've always wanted to paint portraits of patients, but I don't know how I'd manage to fit it in or if anyone would care. Let us make them care, Claire replied, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. What if we organized a showcase? Artists, musicians, anyone willing to share a piece of themselves. What a great idea. Elisa's face illuminated with possibility. We could have an art and music night at the hospital. It could be therapeutic for the staff and uplifting for our patients. They exchanged ideas feverishly, a tangible spark igniting Claire's vision. But as her excitement soared, the shadow of Dr. Aldridge's words hovered in her mind like a cautionary tale. What if her peers rejected the idea? What if they ridiculed her? Would she truly risk her reputation for this? Shaking off the trepidation, Claire reminded herself of the personal rebirth she was experiencing. Then it's settled, she declared. We'll reach out to others, open a dialogue. If we can inspire even a small shift, then it's worth the risk. As they solidified plans, Claire felt a kinship build not just with Elise, but with every person who dared to reveal their hidden selves. The prospect of standing alongside those who typically blended into the background rushed through her veins like an exhilarating anthem. Sensing the possibilities expanding before her, Claire pondered what further ripple effect might occur if they all stepped into the light together. Would Dr. Aldridge reevaluate his opinions? Or would others, emboldened by her resolve, follow suit? An all too familiar question swirled in her mind: how much was she willing to risk in order to create change? And with a blend of enthusiasm and uncertainty, she realized, the time had come to face the fundamental conflict of her journey, a moment that could redefine not just her career, but the ethos of empathetic healing itself. She had to prepare herself for the potential repercussions of her choices. As she stepped outside, a gust of wind greeted her, a metaphorical nudge urging her forward. How far could she go with this new mission? Only time would tell. Claire sat at her small desk in the doctor's lounge, papers strewn about like the scattered thoughts in her mind. The swirl of excitement from her earlier conversations was still palpable, but a creeping doubt emerged, threatening to drag her enthusiasm into the depths of uncertainty. She thumbed through the notes she had taken, initially filled with creative ideas for the showcase. Now, they felt heavy, laden with the weight of possibility and peril. What if her colleagues dismissed her vision? What if they shrugged off her desire for personal expression in a place dominated by sterile professionalism? Each new question hung like a dark cloud, casting shadows over her resolve. She closed her eyes and took a steadying breath. Maybe yielding to fear wasn't an option this time. As she opened her eyes, the door swung wide, and Dr. Aldridge entered, flanked by a couple of interns. He greeted Claire with a nod, but his presence sent a ripple of tension coursing through her. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was poised to challenge her, a gatekeeper of the status quo. Claire, he called over to her, his tone measured and condescending. I heard about your little brainstorming session. Art and music. Isn't that a bit frivolous for a hospital setting? Frivolous. The word hung in the air, sharp and unequivocal. Claire felt a pulse of defiance surge within her. Actually, Dr. Aldridge, I believe art can be a powerful tool for healing. And that includes us, as caregivers. We're human too, aren't we? His gaze was more curious now than dismissive. People come here for medical help, not for entertainment. There's a line we can't cross. Claire's heart thudded as she processed his confident demeanor, her instinct pushing her to defend her belief in the intertwining of art and medicine. But what if that personal touch could foster connection? It's not just about treatment, it's about healing the whole person. Dr. Aldridge remained silent. Claire took his hesitation as a flicker of uncertainty, a crack in his rigid exterior. Let us consider the environment we often create here. Hearts are heavy daily. What if we had a way to lift the spirits of both staff and patients? To remind everyone of the beauty that exists outside these walls. The fear we navigate in this profession often distances us from who we are. His brows furrowed, and the interns exchanged glances. Her heart thumped faster, an internal battle between hope and fear. Was she pushing too hard? She was aware of the fine line between passion and recklessness. Let us say, hypothetically, that you managed to gather this artistic showcase, Dr. Aldrich said slowly, skepticism lacing his words. What if it backfires? The patients might not connect with this new approach you're so keen on. Claire swallowed hard. It wasn't just unknown approval she sought, it was acceptance within a system that often felt stifling. What if it opens doors instead? What if it encourages vulnerability? Now, a flicker of interest danced in his eyes. You're willing to risk your reputation on something so experimental? I am, she managed, finding her footing in her conviction. The practice of medicine thrives on understanding, empathy, and personal connections. I want to harness that to create a richer, fuller patient experience, or at least to challenge how we view ourselves as healers. The room fell silent once more. Claire climbed through layers of uncertainty, her thoughts spiraling but focused now on deliberate realization. Fear wasn't her enemy, silence was. A glimmer of understanding began to unfurl within her. She couldn't carry this burden alone. Fueled by her passion, she could ignite a movement of authenticity among her peers, one person at a time. Perhaps you'll convince yourself first before trying to convince the rest, Dr. Aldrich said. It felt like a subtle challenge, a call to strengthen her resolve. And she realized something essential: her inner journey was about more than just integration, it was a journey toward self-empowerment. She nodded, recognizing Dr. Aldrich no longer just as an obstacle but as an opportunity to sharpen her own beliefs. Let us give it a shot, she replied, more confidently than she felt. I'll gather support and show you what we can achieve. As he walked away, Claire took a moment to breathe, the room igniting with possibilities. Would the realization of her vision bear weight in the world of medicine, or would it crumble beneath the intimidation of tradition? She knew she'd need allies, champions willing to embark on this journey with her. The path forward loomed ahead, imperfect but inviting. She couldn't ignore the feeling that this was the beginning of a larger dialogue, one that could uncover hidden truths about herself and those around her. Determined, she opened her notebook, pen poised to sketch a plan, and waited for inspiration to spark her next steps. Would anyone join her in this quest to dismantle the walls of silence and reveal their own dualities? Would they dare to embrace vulnerability? Claire leaned back in her chair, inhaling deeply as she stared at the jumble of notes sprawled across her desk. Each idea felt more like a fragile dream than a concrete plan. The confrontation with Dr. Aldrich replayed in her mind, infusing her with a mix of resolve and uncertainty. His skepticism echoed like a warning bell, but she couldn't help but feel a thrill at the idea of changing the narrative within the sterile walls of the hospital. She squared her shoulders, digging her pen into the paper. What was to come wouldn't just involve creativity, it would need strategy, too. How could she translate her passion into something palpable? She needed allies, collaborators who could see the merit in her vision. For days, she floated the idea among her colleagues, approaching those known for their interest in human connection and personal care. Initially, their responses varied. Some were intrigued, while others remained distant, caught in the rigid protocols of their daily routines. It stung each time someone dismissed her enthusiasm, labeling it idealistic or irrelevant. Yet, Claire felt a stubborn flame flickering within her, daring her to persist. Persistence bore fruit one afternoon when Dr. Sanchez, a friendly oncologist, approached her in the cafeteria. "I've been overhearing your discussions," he began, a hint of admiration in his voice. "I think you're on to something. People might need a chance to reflect on their experience here, not just for treatment but for recovery." Encouraged, Claire sat down with him, sharing her ideas in more detail. She spoke of art installations, workshops for patients, and musical performances designed to promote healing. To her surprise, Dr. Sanchez not only listened but contributed ideas of his own. He had connections with the hospital's volunteer program and offered to help rally potential participants. As they brainstormed, Claire felt a shift in the atmosphere. The pressure she had felt began to ease slightly. This exchange was not just a collaboration, it felt like the first spark of a movement, one that she envisioned transcending the canvas of her own conviction. Yet, even as hope blossomed, she wondered if this alliance was stable enough to withstand the scrutiny from skeptics. With newfound determination, she began drafting a proposal. Everything needed to be clear and compelling. It had to articulate the tangible benefits of her vision, not just in the abstract sense but with evidence of how art could influence emotional well-being. As she meticulously crafted her plan, Claire also experienced a growing inner conflict. Was she willing to stake her reputation on this? Would her colleagues rally around her idea, or would she find herself further isolated in her pursuits? It felt like walking a tightrope, balancing ambition with the fear of failure. But she also recognized that meaningful change often required stepping into the unknown. That night, back at her cramped apartment, Claire caught her reflection in the darkened window. The woman looking back felt transformed. There was something unyielding there, something that pushed against complacency. For her, this wasn't just a project, it was a lifeline, a chance to affirm her belief that vulnerability and healing walked hand in hand. The next morning, energized, Claire presented her proposal to the hospital's management team. Her palms were clammy, her voice steady but laced with urgency. She highlighted not only the objectives but also the potential impact on both patients and staff. As she spoke, Claire noticed skepticism etched across some faces, but also intrigue in others. She could feel Dr. Aldridge's eyes boring into her, still questioning, still challenging. Art is often seen as a luxury, she concluded, but what if it can be a necessity for healing? A bridge to empathy, understanding, and connection, something we healers desperately need too. Claire's breath caught as she awaited their reactions, her heart pounding with the weight of vulnerability. Would they see a glimmer of potential or merely dismiss her again? Then, as silence filled the room, a familiar voice broke through. "I think you may be on to something, Claire." Dr. Aldridge's words held a depth of surprise, and Claire's heart raced with renewed hope. But just beneath the surface, another question loomed. Would this tentative support hold up against the inevitable pushback from others? The room felt charged, her proposal hanging in the balance. The moment felt pivotal, but as she glanced at the team, she could see the tension flare anew. Would their voices lend weight to her vision, or would they drown it in doubt? With uncertainty settling in her stomach, Claire steeled herself for the confrontation that would determine whether her journey towards self-empowerment would thrive or flounder. The foundations of change were being tested, and she was on the cusp of a critical threshold. What would be the true weight of her conviction in a place like this? Claire leaned forward, her heart thundering as the weight of the moment bore down on her. Dr. Aldridge's unexpected endorsement sent ripples through her, hope mingled with fear, a precarious tightrope strung between aspiration and doubt. She could sense the room collectively bracing for a response. A colleague, Dr. Newman, shifted in her seat, her brows knitted tightly together. "But you're suggesting we divert resources from established treatment methods. Isn't this a distraction?" The tension in her voice underscored the challenge that lay ahead. Claire felt a chill running through her. This confirmation of skepticism from a seasoned physician ignited a battle within her. "No, I'm proposing an enhancement," Claire insisted, her voice tightening but resolute. "Something that addresses the entire human experience of illness. We are not just treating a body, we are caring for a person." Dr. Aldridge nodded, his earlier support hanging like a fragile thread. "Empathy is crucial in recovery," he added, scanning the room. The subtle shift gave Claire a pulse of energy. But Dr. Newman's glare pierced through. "And if it fails? You risk not just your reputation but the entire department's credibility." Doubt swirled within Claire, a storm of possibilities dancing just beyond reach. Would she falter at the first sign of opposition? Did her vision hold enough substance to withstand scrutiny? She recalled the countless moments that had brought her to this threshold, the fleeting connections with patients, the laughter shared over struggles, the silent understandings in waiting rooms. "Claire, you need to present data, case studies," someone suggested. The charge of her passion flickered, but Claire recognized the underlying motive. They were looking for proof that what she proposed was anything more than idealism. Determined, she pushed back against the whirlwind of internal panic. "I'll do that," she replied. But defining success in this context is complex. Recovery cannot be quantified merely by our metrics on paper. It is emotional, psychological. The hesitations in the room rerouted her navigation through uncharted territory. Each retort felt like a challenge, but somewhere in that friction, she was honing her narrative, refining her thoughts into a more compelling message. This was not an invitation to retreat, it was a call to arms for her beliefs. Yet, as Claire contemplated the consequences, a dark question persisted: what would failure look like? What if, in her pursuit of a broader definition of healing, she lost not only the support of her colleagues but the integral connection to her own identity as a healer? Days turned into weeks of painstaking research and preparation. Each morning, she arrived early, poring over studies that demonstrated art therapy's impact on healing. She approached her evenings with the ferocity of someone in a race against time. Claire followed a thread of evidence, stitching together a case that she hoped would weave doubt into a fabric of understanding. One particular evening, Claire found herself in the hospital library, surrounded by stacks of journals, lost in thought. She discovered a pivotal study showcasing the psychological benefits of art in recovery, one that could serve as a cornerstone for her next presentation. As she absorbed each word, something shifted within her. Could she be the catalyst for a new wave of thinking within this rigid environment? As the sun dipped below the horizon outside the large windows, she felt an exhilarating spark. It was time to prepare the next presentation, but not merely as a defense. She would frame it as a challenge to embrace a newfound perspective, one that invited exploration rather than resistance. Claire's determination intensified, edging toward an undeniable epiphany. Perhaps this journey was not just about proving her concept but about forging her identity as a leader capable of questioning the status quo. Rising from the table, she felt an unwavering certainty that she was evolving into a version of herself she had long yearned to become. With her heart pounding and newfound clarity coursing through her veins, Claire returned to her apartment to refine her narrative. But as she honed the language of her presentation, a nagging apprehension gnawed at her. Would her conviction be strong enough to withstand the icy skepticism that had clouded her path before? And as she wrapped up a night of work, the question emerged: in the battle for her vision, would Claire's unwavering dedication be met with an ally from an unexpected quarter, or will she stand alone against the tide? Standing in front of her colleagues once again, Claire felt an unmistakable shift within her. Transformation simmered just beneath the surface. She had rehearsed and refined her proposal until the words flowed effortlessly, fortified by the knowledge and evidence she had gathered. With a steady breath, she began her presentation, projecting confidence into a room that had been skeptical just weeks before. "Today, I'm not just advocating for art, I'm advocating for empathy," she declared, her voice unwavering. She opened with the research that highlighted the profound impact creative expression could have on recovery. Each statistic and anecdote was a building block, designed to transform her colleagues' preconceptions into something tangible. Their disbelieving expression steadily morphed into intrigue as Claire wove in stories of patients who found solace through artistic engagement and the healing bonds formed out of shared vulnerabilities. The more she spoke, the less uncertain she felt. This was no longer merely a defense of her passion, it was a clarion call for a revolution in patient care. As she articulated her vision for an art and music showcase at the hospital, Claire noticed nods of understanding ripple through the room. What had once been a battlefield of doubt seemed to be shifting into fertile ground for ideas to thrive. Dr. Aldrich shifted in his seat, embodying the hesitant acceptance of someone caught between tradition and the allure of change. When she finished, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Silence enveloped the room momentarily, amplifying the anticipation of her colleagues. Then, Dr. Aldrich stood, surprising everyone. "I had my reservations," he began, his voice steady yet open, "but I think your proposal has merit, Claire. Integrating art within our practice could generate meaningful connections." A wave of disbelief coursed through her. Was this the same man who had previously questioned her dedication? She felt an exhilaration bloom, a synchronization of her public and private selves. Absolutely, Dr. Sanchez chimed in. Art and creativity could redefine how we approach care. The unexpected support from within the team began to coalesce around her. Yet, doubts lingered like phantoms. Claire understood that this newfound acceptance would not erase the challenges ahead. Skeptics would still pose obstacles, ingrained doubts might re-emerge. Bracing for possible discord, Claire pushed forward and outlined actionable steps to implement her vision, inviting her colleagues to participate actively. The following week saw an outpouring of enthusiasm. Posters were designed, musicians were recruited, and artists joined the effort, all rallying around Claire's initiative. The hospital's impending showcase transformed into a beacon of hope, a canvas painted with the promise of connection and understanding amidst the chaos of healing. As the night of the showcase approached, Claire felt a surge of pride. This was not merely an event, it symbolized her reclamation of identity. Standing backstage, she reflected on her journey, the sacrifices she had made, the battles she had fought against judgment and skepticism. The moment arrived, and as the spotlight beamed down, Claire stepped onto the stage again, not as a surgeon wrestling with doubt but as a performer willing to bare her soul through song. Looking out at the audience, her colleagues, patients, and families, she felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. With her voice soaring through the air, she witnessed the palpable energy in the room shift. Laughter, smiles, and applause became manifestations of the acceptance she had long sought. Each word she sang served as a bridge, not just connecting her to the audience but illuminating the intertwined paths of medicine and art. The night concluded amidst a grand crescendo of encouragement, transforming the hospital into a celebration of humanity, empathy, and healing. As Claire stepped off stage, Dr. Aldridge approached her, this time without judgment clouding his gaze. "You've proven that vulnerability can indeed bring strength, Claire. Thank you." In that moment, the culmination of her sacrifices met the triumph of her dreams. She had transformed the fabric of her own identity, intertwining her roles as a healer and artist. Finally, she had arrived not just at acceptance but at recognition, a profound acknowledgement of the power that lay in embracing her multifaceted self. Stepping out into the night air, Claire breathed in deeply, tasting freedom and fulfillment born from courage and authenticity. She was not merely a doctor or musician, she was both, competent and recognized in the pursuit of her passion, an accomplished professional standing firmly at the intersection of healing and expression. As she walked away, a familiar melody echoed in her mind, a reminder that this chapter was merely the first of many she would write, each note built on resilience, blending harmony into her life. You need to subscribe now to our channel to never miss out on these exclusive, emotional stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover the power of personal stories. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion, your thoughts matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation.